Do you remember growing your first $900 tomato and thinking, gosh, if I just had gone to the grocery store, it would have been way cheaper? Yeah, same. But we are not doing that anymore. Welcome to the Food, Farm, and Finance Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Graff, and together we are going to build our farms, homesteads, and gardens without destroying our finances. So let's get that bag of soil and money. Welcome back to another episode of the Food, Farm, and Finance Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Graff, and together we are making farming and gardening dreams happen while also stacking some dollar bills. I don't know why I'm sounding like that, but today is a fun, exciting episode, and I am ready to bring the energy. Some people have been asking me this, so today we are leaving the farm and we're going to the city. Or we are going to a place that is equally rural but is still an apartment, because we are talking about what I would grow in an apartment if I was trying to grow a portion of my food but I didn't have a giant space outside or a giant space in the yard or on the farm. So today is a special episode for all of y'all stuck in an apartment that want to make the most of what you can grow in that space. We are going to talk about 5 primary options, and then I've got 2 little bonus ones if you stay till the end, which are super fun, and I myself am doing now. So, let's get into it. Before we do it, though, a message from today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is none other than yours truly. It's Duck River Apothecary, our tea brand. Yes, we blend our own teas here on the farm, and this is the best, easiest, simplest way for you to support this podcast. Just buy a bag of tea. Even if you don't like tea, buy it for a loved one. They're packed with healthy, medicinal benefits that should hopefully shave some dollars off of your healthcare expenses, but I'm not allowed to say that because that's not, no hard claims here. But definitely so delicious, and it's getting to that cold season where nothing is cozier than a cup of hot tea. So definitely check us out. I'll link it in the show notes. Please go support us. It's the easiest way to support this podcast. Now back to the show. Alright, so apartment gardening. So when I say I've done this, I have done this. I have had a gorgeous, lush apartment garden. I had a nice balcony, and I was growing loads of food. And actually, it was kind of funny because when I first bought this farm, I was actually producing less food on 26 acres than I was in my apartment. So it can absolutely be done. It's just what I was prioritizing at the time, right? I was trying to build a flower farm, so I wasn't spending a lot of time trying to grow food. Meanwhile, I was not in my apartment trying to have a commercial flower farm enterprise. That would be very challenging. But I wanted to create this episode because a lot of people are maybe in an apartment situation, right? Like, the real estate market has been insane right now. To purchase land is definitely a privilege and a blessing. And it's just hard, right? It's hard. I will caveat that with saying you don't need as much as you think. I certainly did not need 26 acres. I think 1 to 5 acres is a sweet spot for people who are wanting to really garden and really homestead and kind of live that like natural crunchy life. But it can absolutely be done in an apartment. So this is the episode that's all about growing where you're planted, literally. Okay. So I have outlined 5 different vegetables and or fruits that I would be growing if I was in an apartment. Now, I want to blanket statement with all of this to say each apartment situation is going to be different. Duh. So some of you might be really lucky ducks with a balcony. So 1 or 2 of these might be more balcony specific. Some of them might be best for countertops. Some of them are good for windowsill. It just depends on the spacing that you have, the lighting. Do you have a spot out by your front door that you can put a couple pots that actually get some sunshine? You have to do that research, right? You have to go out there, scope out what can be done. Do you need to get artificial lighting inside? It's just really up to you to figure all those things out because I can't be in your space and know what we can do with it. So these are just some ideas. They are not going to work for everyone, but I think they will work for a lot of people. And I tried to pick things that make a lot of sense for growing in small spaces. So number 1, first and foremost, is going to be no surprise to anybody. It's microgreens. Now, if you don't know what a microgreen is, It is just basically when you plant seeds out, you're going to grow it to like that first leaf stage, and then you harvest it off, and it's a little baby microgreen. Now, microgreens are typically grown in trays, and I would typically say to someone that they can be kind of expensive to just grow at home, and that's just because the amount of seeds you use. So it's not uncommon for a 10 by 20 shallow tray of microgreens to have a seeding requirement of about 2 tablespoons worth of that seed. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the seed variety. When you're looking at that, that is like packets and packets of seeds. Obviously, you're buying those seeds in bulk, so it's not as bad. But, it's maybe not as efficient as being able to have the space and plant them outside. Or, I don't know. I always feel like I'm wasting seeds. But that's not what you're doing. You are creating a very high value product. Microgreens go for really high amounts. So if you're looking at growing them yourself versus purchasing them, you're still going to be coming out ahead if that's something you're regularly purchasing and eating anyways. But what I love about microgreens is you can literally grow so many of them in just a 10-inch by 20-inch space. I mean, truly, it's that little of space required. And you can do it in a windowsill if you want, if you have a good lighting situation in a windowsill, or it's really easy to rig up just a couple little lights and set up a shelf to do it on. So microgreens can truly be grown anywhere. And I think microgreens, as far as someone who wants to grow in an apartment, are probably one of the more viable like little side hustle enterprises you can have, because you can literally fit like dozens of these trays in a 2-foot by 4-foot floor space. So if you get like a grow rack that grows up to the ceiling, you can produce tons and tons of microgreens, and microgreens sell for a really strong amount. They vary everywhere you go, but one little tray can end up being a lot of money worth of microgreens. So if you're wanting to start a little side hustle, that's a great idea. But what I do just love about microgreens is that they are just incredibly nutrient dense. So I always tell people too that microgreens are like great if you want to get some greenery and all the health benefits and vitamins that come with greenery, but greenery upsets your stomach. So if you have like digestive issues and you're eating lettuce and it's like, oh my God, my tummy hurts. Like, oh, I can't handle that. Same with broccoli, brassicas, they're fibrous and it's a lot. But you can get a lot of those nutrients in microgreens. And there's some studies suggesting that microgreens have like a 6-to-1 concentration for the microgreen nutrients. Meaning you would have to eat 6 times the mature vegetable as you would the microgreens to get the same amount of nutrients, which is absolutely a wild fact. So I would definitely double check me on that because, they're still not really well researched. But I think if you're looking for something really nutritious that can be grown in a small space, microgreens 100% is number one. Is it the most budget-friendly item on this list? No, absolutely not. So if you want to grow some microgreens, I think that's great. But I would be conscientious because it can be expensive to buy that seed again and again and again and again, and you can't reuse it very well. So I would just be hesitant on that. But I still think it's a great idea, especially if you're considering a side hustle where you sell the excess microgreens to cover the cost of growing them. Next up is lettuce. Y'all know how I feel about lettuce. I did an entire episode about the value of lettuce, and this, my friends, is where you need to grow. Apartments can grow lettuce like nobody's business. You can easily set up a countertop setup with lettuce. Okay, so whether you want to do like a hydroponic setup, whether you want to grow it in soil, it's not hard to grow your own lettuce at home. So I recommend just like a windowsill planter and just a couple lettuce plants in there. If you are choosing like a nice leaf lettuce would be my best recommendation. Just in case you don't know what a leaf lettuce is, because all lettuce has leaves. A head lettuce is something that you let mature for longer. So think like romaine or iceberg lettuces to create like a head of lettuce. If you're growing in a super small space, like in an apartment, you're not wanting to spend the time and the effort to try and get it to head lettuce stage. You're wanting instead maybe to just harvest the leaves as they come. So pick a nice good leaf lettuce and just plant it out. if you've got a balcony space, plant it out there. Just anywhere you can cram it that gets enough sunlight. And what I love about lettuce is it can handle lower light conditions, meaning you're not going to be able to grow it in the dark, but you don't have to have a super awesome window setup, right? It can kind of grow in less daylight. When you're looking at different varieties to grow in an apartment, that's something that's really critical to think about is lighting, because you might have gorgeous windows, but you might not be getting that much direct sunlight each day. Lettuce can handle just a few hours versus some other items which need like a full day worth of sunlight. So I think this is great. Grow your own lettuce. I think it's very, very doable to take a small space in your house and grow pretty much all the lettuce you could eat for an entire year indoors. And I'm not going to get into whether hydroponics is affordable or economical. The lettuce I'm talking about growing here is going to be a soil-based lettuce. I think that is the most economically viable for someone just starting out. But I do really want to do an episode, so look for an episode as we go and we itemize whether it's worth it to set up a hydroponic system, whether that initial investment will ultimately lead to a better financial situation. Number 3, lumping them all in, herbs. Okay, wow. Who here is shocked? Everybody raise your hand. That's not possible. I mean, you can raise your hand, but I wouldn't be able to tell if you raised your hand because this is a podcast. Was that a joke? I don't know. I wish it was. Anyway, herbs. So this, I think, is the best, minus the first 2 things that I also said were the best. I think herbs are an awesome opportunity to grow food in an apartment. They do not take up that much space. Many of them are perennial, especially if you have a balcony or if you have a little space by your front door, your back door, a little patio area. Then you can literally move them outside, bring them back inside. You can put them on your windowsill, above your kitchen sink. Herbs are incredible to add to an apartment. And this is why I love herbs, because herbs can be worked into and incorporated in almost every single meal and dish that you have. So you can grow things like basil, mint, parsley. These things are all incredibly easy to grow, and you can grow them inside year round. And I think what's really cool about that is it gets you in this mode of like, if I put in a little bit of effort, I can get this out of it. You can easily grow enough that you can save some, dry it, pretty much cutting down on almost all of your herb usage and reliance on grocery stores. So I went to the grocery store today and I looked at the herb section, and the herbs were ranging from 99 cents to $1.99 for one of those little tiny plastic packets. So I thought to myself, imagine if people buy that every single time they're in the grocery store. Over the course of a year, that's $52 in herbs if they just get the dollar herb packet and they go every single week because they want to add some flavor to their dishes. $52 could set you up with a massive amount of herbs in your house. Get you all the pots, get you all the plants, and a lot of the herb plants are perennial, so they'll stay year after year after year after year. And of course, it's not possible in most settings to grow all of the herbs, right? Because things like cinnamon, you're not going to be able to grow that in an apartment, right? But anything you can grow could greatly reduce your dependence on herbs. Talking rosemary, basil, mint. And I think it's a really great way to save cost, save on all that plastic consumption. Literally 52 containers of plastic if you just buy one little plastic mint container every single week that you go to the store. Think about how many mojitos you can have if you just had a mint plant in your house, okay? Mojito in bulk, all right? Think about how much pesto you can make if you had a basil plant in your house that was just constantly cranking. So think about that. Herbs are potentially one of the most powerful cost savers that you could potentially buy and add to your garden if you have a small space. And that's true of all gardens, but I think they're really compact and really easy to grow in an apartment. Next up, this one's great if you have a balcony space or a little patio space, but cherry tomatoes. So I think cherry tomatoes are possibly the best tomato that you're going to be able to grow in an apartment setting. You can get some of the more compact varieties. I just got the crazy varieties and I would just trellis it everywhere on my balcony, and I would kind of let it fall off my balcony a lot, And then the people below me would actually end up picking quite a few of the tomatoes, and they would pick them and we would split them. And it was like, what a little treat, right? And like a cherry tomato plant is incredibly productive. Just one will have you eating cherry tomatoes like nonstop if you grow a productive plant. So if you're wanting to find something that feels like kind of iconically gardeny, I would consider growing a cherry tomato plant. This, of course, is probably not going to substitute all of your tomato needs, but I think still for the value there, you can easily get a tomato plant for under $5. You can easily produce several pints worth of cherry tomatoes just off of that one plant. So if you've got a little extra space on the balcony or on your porch, I think it's worth the investment to add a cherry tomato to your apartment. Now, this last one, and it's not the last one because I've got two bonus ones because I love to talk, is a fruit option. And really, there's not a lot of great options for growing fruit in an apartment. So this is the one I came up with, and it's strawberries, because you can easily do hanging baskets for strawberries that you can hang up on a porch if you have a porch balcony situation, or if you have like a little front door space that you can hang them up. Or I've seen people take like those little shoe racks that they literally put their shoes in on the back of a door. Have you seen those? It's like little cups, and then they like go all the way down this door, except they will mount them on like a patio wall and put strawberry plants all through those, and they grow strawberries like that. Or they'll mount like a little gutter, or they'll use like little terracotta pots. There's a lot of ways. So if you're looking to grow some sort of fruit item, I would consider growing strawberries in your home. And what's great is they can come back year after year if you maintain them and take care of them. So you'll have those for a few years for the investment. I think it's a good option. Now, for my two bonus ones, because I think this is so much fun. If you're really looking for some fruit in your house, in an apartment setting, I think you should grow citrus trees. Now, this might be a little hot take because, right, I've gone from talking about lettuce and a cherry tomato to more of like masterclass gardening. So I'm like, all right, grow some lettuce and then don't forget an orange tree. And you're like, I live in Maine. I do not have any business having an orange tree. Well, here's the deal. Odds are you're going to keep your apartment warm and toasty, right? You don't want it to get too cold. If you have an area in your home that gets loads of light, it is possible to grow citrus trees year-round indoors. We're talking kumquats, limes, lemons, and these are really, really cool. They make dwarf varieties that can actually produce loads of fruit indoors. I'm growing one right now. I have had no fruit, no success. So do not really listen to me on this. But everything I've read says that I can grow them and that it does require pollination. But it doesn't require cross-pollination, meaning you can just have one plant. So I have one little lime tree, and when it blooms, I will take a little paintbrush and I'll move the pollen from the different flowers to hopefully pollinate the lime tree. And that should ensure that I get a good chunk and a good haul of limes. Now, while this might seem a little posh and a little dainty and a little expensive, here's the dill pickle. If you are growing your own citrus, you purchase that tree once, and that tree can produce for years and 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 years. Do I need to keep going? Because I feel like keeping going, but I'm trying not to be obnoxious. With that said, the reward on a fruit tree, any fruit trees, first of all, is huge because you plant them once, and if well maintained and taken care of, you will have bumper crops, and bumper crops of very expensive high-end produce as time goes on. So I think all the same with citrus, and dwarf citrus trees can really thrive in indoor settings. So I think that's a really fun one that you should try if you're in an apartment. Plus, who doesn't want a little tree in their apartment? I mean, so cute. Talk about bring the outside in. Love that. And then my last little one is peppers, hot peppers. So let's get spicy up in here. I've always wanted to have a spicy podcast, so maybe we'll do a hot pepper episode. But peppers, not all peppers. I'm not talking like a bell pepper. Please do not grow a bell pepper in your apartment. If you really want to, that's your own personal project and like your own personal journey. But I think bell peppers are stupid plants. And this is why. Because you grow a bell pepper and it's like, oh, here's 4 bell peppers. And you've spent all this time and energy growing a bell pepper, and you could have got all those bell peppers for like $3. And you're like, what is even happening? Why did I waste all my time on bell peppers? I don't have time for this crap this year. Anyway, no bell peppers. Instead, grow a very high productivity hot pepper if you like hot peppers. So you could even pair it up with your cherry tomato. Put it in that same little planter right there. Boop, a jalapeno. A jalapeno plant. Boop it in there. Because do you know how many jalapenos come from one jalapeno plant? It is obscene. Ridiculous, actually. And do you know how amazing having fresh jalapeno is? It's ridiculous. It's amazing, actually. Even if you don't like spicy food, you'll probably like the fresh jalapenos. So I have maybe 4 jalapeno plants in my garden. You could easily grow a jalapeno plant in a pot, either on your porch, indoors, especially if you have a little warmer home. And it'll probably produce so many jalapenos, and you'll probably be able to can them because we pickle our jalapenos here to make pickled jalapenos, which can preserve and extend that harvest. You can be able to freeze them. So we stuff them with cream cheese and cheddar cheese and wrap them in bacon, and we have jalapeno poppers that are in the freezer ready to go be baked all winter long. Now tell me that is not a delicious treat. And you can do all of this with one jalapeno plant, because I have 4 and I have been so overwhelmed with jalapenos. I'm truly over it. I'm like, if I see another jalapeno, I'm going to get upset. Like, I'm going to rage out because I don't want to pick another jalapeno. Like, I'm ready for these plants to die. So a lot of the hot pepper varieties are like this. They're very prolific. Even those like smaller lunchbox peppers that are like sweeter, small peppers, very prolific. Banana peppers, great option. So I think peppers are actually also a very good apartment, plant. Not that people are typically growing peppers for apartment plants. But anyway, pretty much you can grow anything that you can find the space for and that you can find a setup for in your space, right? Apartment gardening is certainly more challenging, but it's not to discourage you, because there are so many opportunities. Like I said, I literally at one point was growing more food in my apartment than in the first year or two of owning 26 acres. That's wild to me. And I was able to produce, I would say, a good 20% of what I was chowing down on. So you absolutely can do it. These are some varieties and some items I recommend trying to grow. As far as the cost savings goes, the more inexpensive you can keep everything, the better, right? So if you're needing to start seeds, consider saving like old strawberry containers or old blueberry containers and using those to start seed. Try and keep it really, really simple, tight, on a budget, and try and grow as much as you can. I would love to hear about it, so let me know if you do. But until next time, happy gardening, my friends. Oh, and I'm gonna leave you with this one little tip when you're planting out seeds for your garden. Overseed to succeed, okay? We plant more than we want to get because some things just die, all right? Until next time, bye guys.